Okay, today we are going to do some camera tracking on a telephone or on a cell phone that I recorded a video of using my cell phone. Is that ironic? Cell phone video of a cell phone. So what we have, if you go into your dashboard, take a look at the phone tracking. That is today. The phone tracking, and copy this link down into your browser, download this .mov file, and that's what we're going to use. So let's Command Tab over to After Effects, and we need to import that. But first I'm going to do a little organizing here. I'm going to go to my desktop because I don't have my external hard drive, but I'm going to call this one phone tracking. Now theoretically, because you guys started a phone hologram project last time, you probably already have a project file or folder set up for this. So if you don't already have an assets folder, go ahead and make that now, and then copy that phone.mov into your assets folder. That way you can make sure the video file is going to travel with you when you leave here. All right, so I'm just going to drag and drop that into my project file right now. And if you take a look at this, this is a 1920 by 1080, 30 frames a second. So if you started building your phone holograms using anything other than 30 frames a second, it'll be fine because it's all using shape layers and stuff like that. And After Effects can easily adjust the keyframes to make it work when you nest it into a 30 frames a second timeline. But if you just want to be safe, you can change the settings of your phone hologram to match this. But what I'm going to do with this phone.mov, this is a fresh new project, nothing's happened in it yet. So I'm just going to drag this asset down to the new comp icon in the project panel, and that will create a composition that has all the settings identical to the video file that we just dropped in. So I'm going to hit spacebar and just preview this real quick. All right, so the first thing we need to do is do a camera track of this. The best way I know how to do that is to right-click on it in the timeline and then select Track Camera. And that will add the 3D camera tracker effect to the clip. I find a lot of times it's helpful to go into this detailed analysis under the advanced menu right here and select detailed analysis. Sometimes that helps. And then we just sit here while it does the analyzing in the background. This will probably take a few minutes, so I'm going to pause the screen recording so you don't have to sit through it. Okay, pretty much done. Oh, and then it's going to have to solve the camera. Oh, there you go. I gotta wait some more. All right. So now maybe yours will look like this, maybe it won't. My playhead is over at 6 seconds. And you see these little marks? We kind of did this in the book already, but the nice thing about these little marks is we can find a triangulation that will allow us to put an object on the surface of this phone. And so as I'm rubbing my mouse over this, can you see how the disc looks like it's like right here? It looks like it's faced toward me. That's because it's using 3 points that are on 2 different planes, which is causing it to solve a plane that is closer to me, or that looks like it's faced toward me a little bit more. But if I use, for some reason it thinks that this little X is farther away. But I'm liking the way that one's solving, and I'm liking the way that one's solving, because it looks like that little record or disk is sitting on the surface of the camera. So with my mouse over these three, now you can manually go and select, let's say, if I want to use these three or these three and it's just not settling on it, I can select one, hold down Shift, select another, hold down Shift, select a third, and it'll force the camera solver to use those three to create a plane. Now, with this chosen, I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a solid and a camera, because that's the way I feel like doing it this time. So what we have here is, if we go up to our two views, horizontal, zoom out on this, we have a camera that's now moving around. And where's that solid? It's all the way over here. Now, this isn't really what, identical to all the settings that my camera on my phone would have, but what it's doing is it's mimicking the movement in such a way that it will place that on the surface of the camera. Okay. Now let's pretend for a minute that I did make my hologram and it's 1920 by 1080. So I'm going to just create a solid right now, because it'll be 1920 by 1080 as well. And this solid, I'm just going to make this nice pink color. There. And I'm going to delete that. Because what I want to do is replace this solid with it. So I'm going to go to my project panel, go to my solids. Does anybody remember how to replace an asset that's in your timeline already? Yep. So with that asset, with that layer selected in your timeline, you hold down Option or Alt, click and drag it down, you get that little plus mark, and that'll replace it. So now what we need to do is move this over and change the orientation of this so that it'll match up with the surface of the phone. And that's not looking very good, I don't think. I'm not really sure I like the way that's moving. Ooh, yeah, that's nasty. Maybe my camera solve didn't work very well. Let's try it again. So I'm going to go to my phone, camera tracker. Maybe this one's better. Maybe this is better. Maybe that's better. Let's create a new solid, because the camera seems to be working pretty good. I don't like that one either, I don't think. Yeah, it's all ski-wampus. Yeah, we might have to adjust it manually a little bit. All right, so I'm going to replace that again. And now with my rotation tool selected, I'm going to orient that so that it looks like it's actually on the surface. And scale this up and reposition this over the phone. Yeah, it's all messed up. This worked so well last semester. Maybe we should just do last semester's. Just kidding.
I vote yes.
Huh?
I said I vote yes.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah, that doesn't look good. Should we start over? Okay. So I got last year's video and I repeated all those same steps. I did the camera tracker and everything. So so if I go, I want to find a part of this clip. There's a lot of detail in the table. There's not as much detail in the phone to be able to triangulate. In fact, so we want to get it on the surface of the phone, but I don't have 3 points on the phone that I can get a good, well, I guess that works. Or all of these two all the way over here. That's lucky. What I had to do last year was use 3 points on the table. But let me right now just try to use these 3 points. There we go. There it is. Okay, right click, create solid and camera. Let's see how locked up that is. Yeah, that's much better. Pretty cool, eh? Yeah, man. Totally.
Sorry, where's that phone video at?
If you go into Canvas in the Files section of this class, it's the camera track.zip. All right, next step. So we're going to select the track solid, this green solid, or whatever color yours happens to be, and we're replacing it with one that's 1920 by 1080. The reason why we want to replace it with something that's 1920 by 1080 is because that's the resolution of the hologram that you're going to be replacing this with later. But the movement on this is good. We just have a little bit of an orientation problem. We need to get this to match up with the phone. So if I'm just going to hit W to grab my rotation tool, and as I hover my mouse over, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. As I hover my mouse over the Z handle, I can grab the Z handle and rotate it till that matches up. And now I'm going to hit V for my selection tool and grab the X handle, drag it directly over this way. I'm going to grab my Y handle, move it up slightly. Now it's too big, so I'll just hit S for scale, or I could just grab one of these corners and hold down Shift, scale it till it matches up. At this point too, you could fudge the scale just a little bit if you wanted to just kind of do a non-constrained proportions to try and get that to match up as good as you can. Question?
How did you replace the 1920 by 1080 with the...
So your track solid is a square and it's sitting on your phone surface, right? So what you need to do is select that in your timeline and then grab your 1920 by 1080 solid and hold down Option while you drag it down into the timeline and it'll replace it. Did it work?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now I'm just going to preview this to make sure the movement is good. It's pretty good. There's some drifting. Okay. All right. So we can do that. We can kind of do that same thing. I'm going to hide this solid. We can kind of do that same thing with text. Use these 3 points, create text, and you could do a text animation. Again, you have to kind of like turn things and shift them around to get them to match up. But now it looks like there's text standing up on top of the phone. That actually looks better than the screen replacement because with it standing up like that, it just helps. Like it's kind of hiding a lot of the imperfections of the track. But we'll kind of do the same thing when we get our dancing person to dance on top of this. Our little dancing hologram. That's the same thing we'll do. Is we'll create another solid. Actually, we'll probably just duplicate this one. Command D, and then rotate it this way, and then change the anchor point so that the person's standing on the surface. And then we'll have a dancing person on the surface. It's going to be hilarious. Let's make this okay. So that's the camera track. Should we get ahead and a little bit right now and do the little glowing effects that are going to be around our dancing person? Yeah? Okay, let's do it. All right, so let's create another new composition. So let this one be 1920 by 1080. This comp is only 8 seconds long, so we don't need to have it be 30. And then the frame rate is 30. And that should be good. Hologram glow. Click OK. All right. Let's do some fun things with masks. What color do we want this to be? I mean, we can be inspired by the Matrix, make it green. We can be inspired by Star Wars and make it blue. Shout a color, any color. Green, okay, green it is. Command Y to make a new solid. Let's make this one green. I'm going to make this kind of a sort of a teal green. That works for me. Click OK. Now, what I want to do is create a mask with my pen tool. And let's pretend that our little hologram is going to grow out of right here. And then we'll have another shape that comes up like this. And then I'm going to take, for symmetry, I'm going to take this same mask. Oh, wait. I'm getting ahead of myself. Because I'm going to duplicate this mask and put it over here, and then have our person in the middle of this hologram thing. But before I duplicate that, I'm going to hit G again to grab my feather tool, and I'm going to feather this out a whole bunch. And then put another point on this feather and draw it in here. That's fun. Now, let's see. I might want to have that come out even more, like a whole bunch on that side, a little less on this side. And now if I hit select the layer and go MM, that'll reveal all my mask properties. So for the second mask, I'm going to change the expansion. Whoops, not that one, the second one. Change my mask expansion to bring it in to there. And I've got it going out way too far, so I'm going to double click on it to transform it and bring it in this way. That's just to soften it a whole bunch. There. Okay. I'm not sure how much I like it, but we'll work with that for now. Okay. Now I can go to mask number 2, select mask number 2 and hit Command D to duplicate it, and then hit Command T to transform it and bring it over this way. In theory. Nope, that totally didn't work. It's a good idea though. Okay. This way, this way. Feather this one in, feather this side out. Oh, I like that better than the other one. Okay. Now I'm going to feather the first one a bunch. There, a little platform. Let's add an effect to this one. Does everybody need me to hold on for a minute? Okay.
When you're feathering it, it looks like you're feathering like the top part of it, but the bottom part's not as feathered. How do you do that?
So the feather tool will allow you to add feather points to your mask. And the feather tool is just, you hit G again. So G is your pen tool, G again is your feather tool. And if you click on the mask, it'll add a feather point, and then as you drag it out, it'll increase the feather at that point. If it's the only point, it'll add the feather to your entire mask. So then what you have to do is go down and click on the plus on your feather line, your dotted line, and that'll add a point, and then you drag that one back in, and that changes the feather over the distance from one point to the next. All right, so the next thing I want to do on here is we need to make this look like it's analog. And a really good animation preset, if you go into your effects and presets and just type in TV, there are a few old TV presets. I'm going to do Bad TV 2 and just drag this down on to my solid, and then it kind of does this wacky thing. Now, another thing I'm going to do now is hit Command T or Option T to set an opacity keyframe. And then I'm going to type in an expression to change the opacity. And I'm going, let's go I'm going to change the opacity of this to like 30% to begin with. So I just want it to be faint. And then I'm going to option click or alt click the stopwatch, and then I'm going to type wiggle parenthesis 15, 20 and close parenthesis. And that will make it flicker. And then you can change the speed of your wave. And then if you wanted to, you could randomize a lot of this stuff, because right now the wave is traveling at a constant speed, which is a little bit weird. So I'm just tweaking some settings there. But that's fun, right? So sweet. And then another thing we could do here is add some glow, but I might rather do that in the main composition after we've put it onto the phone. So just pretend we've got our dancing person in the middle of this hologram thing, okay? So let's go back to the project panel and open up our phone hover. And if you haven't done this already, take the solid that's on your phone right now and duplicate it. And then on the duplicate, hit R and rotate the X value till it stands up on its end. The other way I actually did this was I used the rotation tool, and I rotated it till it was looked like it was standing up vertically. Because at this point it's about how it looks and not about whether the math is correct. And then I put the anchor point, so A for anchor point, I put the anchor point pretty much on the bottom of it so that it lifted it up so that it would stand on the surface. And now what I need to do is option, with that vertical one still selected, I'm going to hold down option and drag the hologram glow down onto it. And now, let me just hide this for a second. Now we've got a hologram. On the surface of the phone. All right, so I'm going to drag this so that I'm going to actually drag this down so that it looks more like it's right on the surface of the phone. And one good way to know that is my little base thing here is colliding with that solid that's on the phone there. Okay, so now if we want to, we can add a glow to the hologram glow. Type in glow and in your effects and presets panel and drag your glow effect down onto it. You can change the threshold of this, intensity. And that changes it so that as it gets brighter, it has a little bit more of an effect. Okay. Let's do another thing. Let's make a little glowing circular base for this to be sitting on. I'm going to teach you a new effect right now. So make a new composition. Click on the Create New Composition icon in your project panel. Is everybody ready for me to do a new thing yet? No? Okay, I'll hold on for a minute. Sure. All right, so now we're going to make our little glowing platform. So I'm going to hit Command N to make a new composition. This one I'm going to make 400 by 400. Frame rate is 30. Duration's 8 seconds because this video is only 8 seconds long. And I'll click OK. Now I can grab really anything, any of these solids. I just need something to put the Vegas effect on, because the Vegas effect will take on its own properties. So any of the solids that you have currently, just throw down in there. Now I'm going to hit Q to select my shape tool. If yours isn't on your ellipse, hit Q until it cycles through and becomes your ellipse tool. And then just make a circle, hold down Shift, make a circle in the middle of that composition. Right there, approximately. Yep, that'll put a mask on it. Yep. You have to have the layer selected to make the ellipse on, to make it a mask on the layer. Okay, now I'm going to go to my effects and presets and type Vegas. Double click on it and that'll put it on there. Right now you can't really tell, but there's like little dashes going across the circle, but it follows the mask. So first thing I'm going to do is under rendering in your effects controls panel, instead of over, just put it on transparent. Okay, so now this effect is happening on transparent. So let's go next under segments. Let's just make it 1. Okay. And then let's go down under the rendering again, go to width, make it really, really big. And now under length, I'm going to make it just go like halfway. Okay, so I'm just changing the length till it goes halfway. Now we're going to start animating. What we're animating is the rotation. So we want it to go wee, 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 around and around and around. Okay, I'm just going to undo that real quick. So I'm going to activate with my playhead at the beginning of the timeline. I'm going to activate keyframes for the rotation. And then I'm going to hit end to go to the end of the timeline. And then change the value of the rotation to -5. So now it's just going to spin around and around. All right. Next, go back to the beginning of your timeline. Add a keyframe for length. And now I'm going to go into my timeline panel and hit U to uncover my keyframes. And I'm going to slide that length over to like 1 second. And now with my playhead still at the beginning, I'm going to change the length to 0. So there's no length, and then it grows there, like that. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer Command D, and then I'm going to rotate the layer 180 degrees. So R, rotate 180, and now we'll have two little things going around each other. It's like a loading thing. And I'll pause till we can all get caught up. All right, so the next thing we need to do now that we've got our little spinning Vegas effect is go back to the phone hover layer, and just like we replaced our vertical solid with our glowing thing, we're going to replace our horizontal solid with that little hologram glow. No, I didn't name that correctly. Glowing base is what I'm going to call it. All right. So hold down Option or Alt and replace that. Pretty cool, huh? Now I'll have someone dancing right in the middle of it. Yo. Okay, so as we're preparing to do your pre-animated thing from last time, let me just show you the idea behind what we're going to do. I'm going to create another composition. You don't have to follow along at this point. I just want to show you what's going to happen. So we created a bunch of shape layers, right? And we got all these different animations happening, but up until now they've all just been happening in the same plane on the same surface. So if I do this and make this layer a 3D layer, I'm going to duplicate this a bunch of times and just spread them, spread them in Z space. We go to Custom View. I'm just going to spread these out. Okay. Now, all I need to do, anytime I want to put something on the surface of the phone, I really, because this glowing base is on the surface of the phone, I just need to duplicate the glowing base and replace it with anything new. But as of right now, see how all those rings that I just made, even though I spread them out in 3D space, see they're all just sitting right on the surface? Watch what happens as soon as I click on this redraw. Plunk, it separates them out. So now they are in the 3D space as well. So if I animate these, so I'll go to Comp 1 and have them all, I'm going to have them all follow layer 1. So I'm going to hit my position, just slide that over like 2 seconds, and I'm going to bring them way, way up in vertical. So they're all flying in like that, right? In 3D space. So if I go back to my phone hover, watch what happens. Now one little tricky thing we have to do is make it so that they disappear when they go behind here. So let's duplicate glowing base again and put a solid on that. And I'm going to make a track mat. So there's solid. I want to extend this. I'm going to put the anchor point at 1920 and 1080 so that I can place this down on the corner. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want this to disappear anytime it's going to dip down below what part of the phone I can see. So I'm going to scale this up so that it extends way out this way. And then use this as a track mat for my rings comp. Let's call this rings. And now I want to have my toggle. If I toggle switches modes, it's off the bottom of the screen. Oh, there it is. Then I can set the track mat for that as alpha mat. So then anything that is showing up inside that rectangle will be visible, and as these rings dip down into the beyond the surface of the phone's it'll look like the phone is like a window to another dimension or something. So that's kind of nifty. So that's what we're going to be doing with all the shapes and stuff that you built last week that you're turning in this week, is we're going to then put them into 3D space and break them apart in 3D so that they actually lift up off the surface of the screen. Okay. All right, that's it for today. We'll continue this next week.